All right, let's get started, man. Zaki, thank you for coming on to the show. I want to start by
My
saying
pleasure.
that, brother. No problem, man. No problem, dude. So I guess we can get started off, man. Um, how did you get into Cosmos? I know a little bit about yourself, but over here because Bitcoin, I'm sort of like that bridge to connect our TradFi audience over to our crypto audience. So if you don't mind going into a little bit about that, I'd love for you to share that, man. I love all of your work, Somalia, and all the contributions you've done to the Cosmos Hub. It's truly an honor to have you here, brother.
Uh, Thank you. I wouldn't be here without the work of a lot of other people. It's not just me at all. But the biggest, you know, and like especially everything that's been going well with Sommelier in the last few weeks has been just like an enormous number of people have contributed to making that possible. But what I would say, okay, so how did I get started? So I got into crypto in 2013. In 2013, um, like I started out being much more like interested in like cryptography, protocol design. Like these are the kinds of things that I got into. Um, like the like currency and tokens and all and like that stuff came a lot later as something that like I found interesting. In the beginning, I was just like, hey, like how does all of this cryptography and distributed consensus stuff work? What makes it possible? Um, but like San Francisco had a really interesting crypto scene in like sort of late 2013, early 2014. And the way I would describe it is that like everyone who was in the community who knew how anything worked had gotten their startup funded in 2013, and so they all left. Um, and so the San Francisco crypto community was a bunch of people who were very new to crypto, because there was like the 2011 to 2013 crowd, and then there's sort of like the 2013 to 2016 crowd. And sort of I found myself in that crowd, and like in late 2013, early 2014, we were all just kind of like no one would come to meetups or anything that like knew how anything worked. And so we'd all sit there with like source code, with like GitHub open and white papers open, and we're like, how does consensus work? How does the peer-to-peer layer work? How does privacy work? Like, how do UTXOs work? Like, all of these things. Um, and so I spent a lot of time doing that. Then 2014, I co-founded a company called SkewChain, and we were doing like invoices and like real world financing on blockchains. Obviously, it was way too early, um, but then around the same time, I met Jay, and this was before Jay had started working on Tendermint. At the time, he was building a crypto exchange, and then he decided to abandon the crypto exchange project and start working on a new consensus algorithm. Um, and Jay would say was like, it's like the amount of stuff about crypto that Jay understood back in like 2014, 2015, it took a long time for anyone else to catch up. Much of the ideas that like became Cosmos, like on-chain light clients, proof of stake, BFT, slashing, all of these things were things that like Jay was really excited about in like 2014, 2015. It was just like, it was extraordinary. Um, and so I really liked hanging out with and like working on like watching Tendermint. Um, and then in 2015, 2016, I was very much part of this like group of people in the Bay Area who like their hobby was working on like new scalable blockchain protocols. So like talking about sharding, talking about new programming models, all of this stuff. Um, then 2017, so like Cosmos was born in 2016, when so 2015, I think like early 2015, Ethan and joined Jay, and they like basically co-founded Tendermint, um, the company. Uh, then they spent a lot of time like trying to find enterprise customers for Tendermint. Nobody would use it. Um, so then they were like had decided to pivot to like building a public chain. Um, really didn't want to build just like another Ethereum clone, so they were trying like more innovative ideas, um, but nothing was really sticking. I'd had this little bit of like a side project, um, designing something that basically was fusing. Um, I'd found Agoric's like the Agoric work on the internet, like Mark Miller's work on Mark and Dean's work on smart contracts, from like the 1990s, on the internet, and I really thought there was something really exciting that could be done, like merging those ideas with Tendermint, and then the on-chain white client stuff that Jay was working on, and this idea of interconnected blockchains. Um, and so we came up with an architecture. Just give me one. We came up with this architecture that was very much based on that work. And Ethan wrote the white paper, and that's where when Cosmos was born. And so then 2017, ICO Madness starts. Just give me 1 second.
No problem, man. Take your time. Take your time.
Uh,
For those of you in the audience, we'll upload this space 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded onto our YouTube.
Nice. Okay. So then 2017, ICO Madness happens. Everyone I know raises way too much money. Um, in spectacular amounts, large amounts of money. Um, you know, I run around helping people with all of the different problems that their projects have. 2018, decide to focus on Cosmos. Um, like my main focus is like building the validator community. Um, and then we do the first incentivized testnet. 2019, we launched Cosmos. Um, 2019, like the IBC work really begins in earnest. 2020, finish IBC. End of 2020, like we were basically done with IBC in like late October 2020. But wouldn't actually be ready to launch, wouldn't actually launch it until February. But like I didn't have a lot more to do then. So like, the idea, so DeFi summer had happened. I'd been, I'd been thinking, me and Christy had been thinking about uh, like the idea that would become Sommelier for like more than a year back. So we are like, this is the time to start working on Sommelier. Then do, lots of R&D. um, IBC launches, Osmosis happens, Cosmos starts to get some traction. The vision that we that we'd had back in 2016 becomes a reality. Sommelier then has a really rough. So 2021 is pretty good for Sommelier. We raise money, we like build out the team, we like make a lot of progress. Uniswap v3 launches, when our initial plans were very focused on like LPing Uniswap v2. Um, then and like but like the DeFi market starts to become more complex in kind of the ways that we had predicted when we started building Sommelier. 2022 is a really rough year for Sommelier. I joke that like every time we launched a new strategy, and like we also had realized that like we needed more R&D, especially on the smart contract side, than we'd anticipated in order to like really build the product that we wanted to build. Um, so 2022 is a pretty rough year. Like we launch a bunch of initial strategies, and like the market nukes just almost every time after we launch the strategy. And then 2023, Real Yield USD launches, but it's more than just the launch of Real Yield USD. We finally have this smart contract architecture that like realizes our vision of almost like a fund back office embedded in the smart contract, that can allow the strategists to take arbitrary positions in DeFi, and do like all of the like performance fee, management fee, NAV, accounting fee, distributing yield, all of that just like on chain. So all of those pieces come together. And yeah, Real Yield USD has been live. It has been a top liquidity provider in the target pool, of USDT, USDC 1 basis point pool. We've been averaging about 7.5 percent yield APY organically from the alpha that is expressed in the strategy. And that brings us to this conversation.
For sure, dude. So, given that you've been in the Cosmos dev almost since inception, basically, I know there's a lot of devs within the overall crypto ecosystem that are moving towards a modular approach, right? Things
Yep.
like Celestia, things like Fuel Labs, all that stuff. So, for the end user, right, how do you think that looks like interacting with all these dApps 3 to 5 years from now, right? Back in the ICO boom, right? Really the only people talking about DeFi and all of those things outside of the dev community were people like John McAfee, God rest his soul, right? He was talking about users becoming liquidity providers, atomic swaps, getting paid yield, borrowing and lending, all that stuff. So for blockchain modularity, right, how does that look for the end user? What kind of dApps and experiences can the end user be able to experience?
Um, so I think like one of the biggest like things that is like sort of is about how early crypto really is how few applications we still have, right? Like people are, if you question the idea of, the application specific blockchain, it's like, really, we don't have that many applications yet. So it's like really hard to assess. What we have is some positive signals, like DYDX deciding to use Cosmos, I think has been because they're like essentially on iteration 4 of their application. And, uh, you know, at that point, when you've done, tens of billions of dollars of volume on your perp exchange, you have a sense of where what product market fit looks like. And it starts, like the full stack control starts to make sense. Like I've tended to view like basically all of the L1s that we see today as primarily like rapid prototyping environments. And while all of the like sort of application specific blockchains roll up toolkits that are being built now are like the sort of what you're going to use to build the mass market applications of the future as some of these experiments start to pan out. But you have to run like a team has to run an experiment for a long time. I mean, I think it was like, it was without a doubt like uh like an unnecessarily large roll of the dice to try and build sommelier, in the sense of, we were really hypothesizing that there's this alpha out there that like that could be expressed in these sort of hybrid on-chain off-chain strategies. And there was a bunch of reasons from first principles to believe that it existed, but like real yield USD is the first strategy on the platform that really demonstrates that. And now you only have to believe that there's like 50 or 100 more strategies like this, which I think is which is a smaller leap than the 0 to 1 leap of real yield USD. But like in general, I think the way most builders build is they want to build like incrementally towards product market fit. And the current crop of L1s are continuing to provide like lots of opportunities for people to experiment with different combinations of economic primitives, different user experiences, etc. But like the sort of full destiny of like the modular stack and the application specific blockchain stack will only really become a reality as people are like, here's product market fit.
And for yourself, Saki, um, would you say that perhaps AI can be involved in all these applications for the end user? Say like with Somalia, right? Like portfolio management. Do you think there would be a scenario where the user can kind of pick an AI algorithm to manage all of that for them rather than, click a few buttons here and there via an interface? Do you think
So,
that can potentially be rolled out into the future?
well, I mean, the team that built Real Yield USD actually has an AI background. Um, Sun, who's the CEO of Seven Seas, we actually convinced him to drop out of his machine learning PhD. Um, and so we are actually using a lot of these techniques in real yield USD today. Um, and that was always a big part of the SOM thesis, right? Like we can get um, we that like that there would be these like off chain strategies that could be expressed. Um, I think I think there are a lot of different layers in which AI and blockchain will end up, uh, synthesizing together like very nicely. Like I can imagine a world in which like, when you do a transaction or you interact with a smart contract, getting like an English language description of like what this transaction is actually supposed to do, coming from from AI. I think that that you're going to embed AI systems um, into all kinds of smart contracts. Um, I mean, I think a lot of our team has speculated about more like meme driven smart contract strategies on top of Sommelier rather than just like like here's the alpha, there's a bunch of secret sauce, like this is the way it works. Maybe that also becomes like a popular product on the platform. I think there's a lot of potential for moving pieces. Why are you crying?
Sorry, I pressed that by mistake. I
I,
meant to do the heart button,
I thought
dude.
I thought meme I thought you were saying that meme driven trading like makes you sad. Like
No, no, dude, no. So for myself, Saki, I'm looking for a little bit of an alpha drop here, man. If I'm being honest, it's not every day that an individual gets to speak with you. Um, so I guess I'll be straightforward with my next question. I'm more of a like I like things like GameFi, so things like Sandbox, all that stuff. Is there any development on the Cosmos end that you've seen? A lot of like innovation in the background, a lot of like stealth teams building on Cosmos for that sort of stuff.
so
Not really like. Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, so I think this comes to like a little bit of the strengths and weaknesses of Cosmos right now. You know, from a TVL in DeFi point of view on Cosmos DeFi side, we're basically right behind like the uh like Ethereum L2s as an ecosystem and like quite a bit ahead of like if you look across the entire IBC connected ecosystem. And like lots of exciting stuff is coming, so there's like lots of reasons to but like daily active user numbers on Cosmos are like abysmally bad. They're like way behind like virtually every other competing ecosystem. And I think, missing that like GameFi component has been a huge missing piece in the ecosystem. So when I like missing like NFTs, gaming, GameFi, all of that stuff. I think so. Like and honestly, when it comes to things about NFTs, like I know almost nothing. So like I'm just like not the expert. All I know is that it's a thing we don't have in our ecosystem, and it's a gap that needs to be filled. But I have been very excited. There's the Saga team, who has been like working really hard at like onboarding a lot of GameFi developers um, into the Cosmos ecosystem. Um, there are like there are a lot of different players in like sort of blockchain as a service, roll up as a service ecosystem, both in Cosmos and Celestia, that are like very much attracting uh, GameFi developers. Delphi did this like really amazing piece about like why Cosmos is so attractive for DeFi developers, but like and it speaks to like my biases definitely in terms of my influence over the project, right? Like, we've really built and optimized in the Cosmos ecosystem for the needs of DeFi developers, um, and less for the needs of like sort of GameFi, NFT gaming developers. Um, and so I think like teams like Saga, teams like Barachain, like those teams tend to, and like even the Canto team tend to understand that world like a lot better than I do, and I'm like broadly hopeful that they like figure out how to bring that community and like show them something that they find to be special and unique and amazing in the Cosmos ecosystem.
I love the Barachain guys. I love them, man. We're gonna try to do like a little Barachain community space. I know they're working really hard
I have access to the
in the
source code,
background.
so I will say it is fire.
It reminds me a lot of like it reminds me a lot of like 2019, like that Q2 2019 when I started hearing about Thorchain, and it was like this really cool way as a leveraged bet with the liquidity in the market. Like if you're quote unquote bullish on incoming liquidity into crypto, then Thorchain is a surefire way to see like the state of DeFi and all those things. So I kind of think of Bearchain as like that next coming of innovation when it comes to those sort of things with their proof of liquidity mechanisms and
I
their
remember
three.
when we first started running and like realizing that the Thorchain team existed um, in in uh, in uh, in 2018 because they were all anon, but these people you never seen before would like, come up to you at conferences and just like ask like super deep Cosmos SDK questions, and you're like, who are you? What are you building? Like where like why like where is this coming from? Whatever, but like um yeah, and so it's that's been like a great project. I would also say that there's a lot about crypto right now that like does in general feel like 2019 again. um it's not like 2019 in the sense that that like there is a certain amount of like institutional presence that has like stuck with it through the cycle. There has been and there's been a bunch of and there's been a bunch of and like we have a lot more DeFi primitives that like we know work. And we have a lot more users and like the whole NFT ecosystem exists. But I do think like the general like you have to like pull liquidity from up from the grassroots. That there isn't this like magical liquidity fountain called Alameda anymore. That like you really do have to like sort of uh, uh, it's like hand to hand combat to build a lot of projects in a way that it hasn't been for the last 2 years. Did I lose you?
Hey, Taki, sorry, man. I actually got an incoming call that
Yeah,
I
no
had to
problem.
cancel. I did not hear the last 10 seconds,
Okay,
brother.
so what I was saying was it's a lot more like 2019 era hand to hand combat, building projects. It's much more community driven now. Um, I think I do think that we have like we're a lot of like a lot of what the ecosystem feels like is like reminds me a lot of like what it was like when we launched Cosmos. It's just like right now we have a lot more technology that like actually works.
Yeah, there are things that are actually like tangible now. Like I remember back in those times, all we really had were things on Tron, maybe two dApps on Neo. I know one of them was called Switcheo. There were a few things on EOS that were just like completely dead. And as for Ethereum, all we really had was like IDEX,
Do
Ether
you know if
Delta.
the Switcheo that's on Cosmos right now is the same Switcheo as that Switcheo?
That I'm not sure. That I'm not that I'm really not sure, but it was quite similar to what we're seeing today, so like the products that are being built out right now kind of remind me of like the DeFi products that were being built out in 2019, right? And we're also seeing a lot of rebrands from projects. And I remember back in like 2019 when things like synthetics were doing like somewhat of a rebrand, and they were gonna launch like their DeFi application. And then of course, like I was looking at things that was happening to ETHLend that rebranded eventually to Aave in 2020, and then also things like it used to be called Republic Protocol, but then it got rebranded to Ren, sort of like this
You really
gateway
have a
bridge.
good memory of all this stuff. Like you're saying it, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
remember this, but like I haven't thought about this in years.
yeah. Because to me, like 2018 was like a huge learning experience, you know, and like in like by the end of like Q1, I'm like, all right, this is probably gonna pan out to be like 2018, to be honest. And it turned out to be a lot more brutal. Instead of tokens going down like 99% or 98%, as far as the majors go, it was the fintech applications that went down a full
Yeah.
100%, right? And it was more of like a fundamental destruction, right?
I
And
mean that
it
that
was
is
really just
something that just like kind of riff off of that a little bit was like, when I was in when 2018 happened, it was like, it was like a lot of things went to zero, but it was like, you know, none of the market makers, none of the big exchanges like actually failed, right? Like, you know,
that's the crazy part.
yeah.
That's the crazy
Whereas
part.
like this failure, it's sort of interesting like how this crypto winter doesn't seem to be as deep and dark. But on the other hand, it was like we've just had like major institutions just like collapse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But just like in previous market cycles, there's always a large entity that goes down. Like in 2013, more like early 2014, right? That cycle, you had Mt. Gox, and then you had the Bitfinex hack, and then in 2018, you had BitConnect and all the other lending platforms and all the ICOs sold all their treasury from ETH to BTC. They dumped the BTC on the open market, so people thought Ethereum was a scam. But in the background, I saw the Uniswap grant, I saw all the BND that ETHLend was doing, and then I saw all the innovation that Binance was doing with their innovation programs, like incubating Matic and all that stuff. And I remember Matic being incubated by Ian Bellina. Sandeep and his business partners were actually on stage during Ian Bellina's Crypto World Tour, and they gave that speech for Ian Bellina's pitch deck. So what he would do is he would give projects a 5 minute pitch to go up on stage and kind of talk their shop, and Ian gave them a chance and kind of put Matic on the map through that. And then Matic got incubated by Binance, and I think we're going to start seeing that with like a lot of other projects, right? Of course, ones that have like stayed solvent within their treasury and all that stuff and didn't use funds for like nefarious purposes. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see that a lot of projects that were just thought out for dead are being incubated via other exchanges, such as Floki, right? Like it's just like a meme coin metaverse thing, but like KuCoin decided to incubate them as well as a few other exchanges, and it's nice to see like some projects survive, and not everything after every market cycle will be like zero next batch. It's great to see that, and that's why I'm so enthusiastic about Cosmos. And that was really like one of the first ecosystems that I came across when I came in during 2017. But I know, like, of course, I wasn't live yet, and I remember joining the Telegram in January of 2018, and there were less than 1,000 people in there, brother. And like one of the only representatives that was really active in that chat was the Django Unchained, and I found it really cool. And I stuck around in that chat for a while, and that's eventually how I found like how so many products are built on top of Cosmos. Things like Binance, Matic, Fetch, Thorchain, all that sort of stuff. And it's really nice to see that an ecosystem survived like the
This is a
carnage
little bit
that
of how I want
was.
sommelier to happen too, right? Like right now we have this like real yield USD strategy, and it's very like branded as Som, and but I actually like my vision for sommelier is very much that it's like it becomes like invisible infrastructure underlying DeFi. Um, that like you will just use Som to like automate lending on Euler, L- LPing on or like getting yield on your stable coins or like optimizing your liquid staking derivative position without like really having to like know that you're using Som.
Yes, I think eventually, um, like crypto or Web3, whatever you want to call it, is going to get to that state. Now it's just a matter of like what's going to be the ultimate like the DeFi hosting platform that's going to have all of these protocols within one. And that's why like I'm very bullish on the builders within Cosmos, especially guys like Tendermint Timmy building out things like Spark IBC and Interchain Info that are going to kind of like bridge the gap from regular retail user and kind of have like a platform where they can connect with other like-minded people and see developments going on within the ecosystem within like a pretty nice UX and all of those things. I think I think we're in for an exciting couple of years. I'm happy to be here, to be honest, and now is definitely the time to pay attention to what's being built instead of just like walking away because of what's happening in the broader world.
Well, I mean,
My
I think we've
passion.
all gotten a big reminder as to like why not your keys, not your crypto, um, is continues to be the most important value in the space, right? And so Som was invented because DeFi is the natural nature of DeFi is it's going to become harder and harder to like use to stay competitive. It's going to advantage skill more, and like what we wanted to do with Som was make skill available to everyone. Um, and I think we really are demonstrating that with the real yield USD.
Ducky, and what other things do you think can be built on top of Cosmos? Like, if me being an enthusiast, right, a crypto enthusiast, Web3 enthusiast, whatever it may be, how would one get started on becoming a builder? Like, you're just fresh, zero about code. How would one go about to begin building within Cosmos? Where would I go?
Um, so we have a lot of different developer experiences and developer communities. I'd also like just shout out, um, if you don't, I think if you don't know any code, the Builders program is probably not necessarily going to be super helpful. But if you kind of some Go or know some Rust or know some Solidity, and you want a good understanding of just like how the moving pieces of Cosmos Binary runs something called the Cosmos Builders. I think it's called Interchain. I think Interchain.builders is the website. Builders program great is a great solution. Interchain Academy has lots of docs about how to get started in the Cosmos. Um, I think one of the other general things is to start is we're starting to see like more and more sophisticated interchain apps. So like Stride was like the first app using interchain accounts in production. So like one blockchain literally sending like executing transactions on another blockchain over IBC. But we're going to see a lot more exciting stuff built with that. This kind of swap and forward middleware on top of IBC is becoming like IBC middleware is just becoming a superpower. In fact, my general view about like where blockchains and Cosmos are going is a lot more like delegation of functionality. So like you're gonna like a lot more is gonna happen in the world of like in the same way that Tom is doing it, right? Like where a user's like, I want this outcome, but like, I don't want to like sign every transaction, manage every input, do every smart contract interaction, send every IBC transaction, spend the next like hour clicking with my ledger as I like incrementally get closer to it. I think we're much more going to be entering in a world where it's like, I want this outcome. and the infrastructure will take care of the outcome occurring. Um, and so I think there's just like a lot of stuff that can be built with Cosmos today. There's even more that can be built in the future. The rest of the blockchain ecosystem is also becoming much more Cosmos like in its structure. So there's just like, I think there's a lot of like, there's an entire new generation of experiences that like the building blocks are coming together very nicely. App chains, interchain queries, like being able to like, prove a state from one blockchain on another blockchain, which is the basic idea of IBC, but like being able to like generalize over that, and like generally do like a bunch of like specifying like sort of like much more like declarative outcome driven interactions with blockchains, and less like step by step turning the crank as like the end user until you get to your desired state.
Doc, I want to thank you for your time, man. Thank you. This conversation has been so informative, and it's an honor to host you here at Because Bitcoin, brother. Thank you so much. For the listeners in the crowd, um, if you want to come up and give any statements, ask any questions to Zaki, feel free to do so. And just as a reminder, if you just came into the space, we're here talking with Saki, one of the innovators within the overall crypto ecosystem, in my opinion. Just not just Cosmos, a good value to the space, if I'm being honest here. And just as a reminder, 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded, this will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So we have one speaker request. I'm going to bring him up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Cool. Thanks, Wabi. You're killing it, man. I love what you're doing here. Um, yeah. So I was just had a question about sort of what you ended with there, with like users cranking through with like individual transactions, and I'm kind of approaching this from a perspective of somebody who does a little bit of coding but doesn't really know about blockchains. I want to learn more. I just want a nice little entry point. I thought that was really interesting. So I just thought a user cranking through transactions versus a user not cranking through transaction. What on a technical level, what change or what difference has to happen
Yeah.
in order to make that leap?
So there's a couple of things that are sort of coming down the pipeline, and I'll just give you like some keywords to search for. So one keyword is the account abstraction, which is a term that comes mostly from the Ethereum ecosystem. Another term that's specific to the Cosmos ecosystem is the AuthZ, AUTHZ module, which is live on a bunch of Cosmos chains. Then there's this idea that like no one's really built yet, but it's coming because like interchain queries on Cosmos, and there's this new like zero knowledge project called Axiom that allows you to do zero knowledge proofs, where you're like, so imagine like instead of saying like, okay, like so like think about my example that comes into my head is like I need like when you want to use stride, right? So like you're like, okay, like I need to like push a button, I need to like sign a transaction that like maybe that like either I have unstaked atoms or unstakes my atoms. Then I have to wait 21 days. then I have to then I have or like hopefully not, like I have unstaked atoms. I take my unstaked atoms, I IBC them to I like or like I send them to account. Then like Stride does a bunch of stuff. Then they give me my staked atoms. Then I like IBC again. Then I like send another transaction to like enter the Osmosis LP pool. This is like that's my end user flow to like optimize my stacked yield on top of staking atoms. Like that's like the highest yielding like atom position you can have right now. So like you do all of that. Okay, that like this is a terrible user experience. But like, what if there was a chain where you could just be like, I will pay out to an account that to the account that sends me a proof of sending like the right amount, like a certain amount of like LP tokens on osmosis on the Atom Stride LP pool. And like I will just put up some atoms to like whoever could like send me that proof, right? Now, as a user, I'm not like cranking through all the transactions. Someone out there in the ecosystem like goes and cranks through all those transactions and then sends me the coins and claims the bounty, right? And all of that can be accomplished trustlessly. We're also seeing like with like the idea of the account abstraction, like a lot more like you can do things where like you are like so you could do things like Psalm, where like someone is trading on your behalf. You could do things like I'm gonna delegate just like restaking auto compounding functionality to someone else. You could have like a sort of personalized trading strategy that's being executed by you, and so you're like take 50% of my Osmo rewards and trade them into stables every day. Um, you know that kind of functionality, I think, is very much the future of where blockchains are going because of the fact that we are building these abstractions that allow this to be done without custody. And so, like, essentially, where we're going with all of this, with Psalm, with Auth, with the account abstraction, with interchange queries, like all of this stuff, is basically the user experience that all of these like fintech monstrosities were promising people, but without the trust and without the ability of them to like run away with your money or YOLO them into like some nonsense.
Great stuff, man. Thank you. I'm gonna go back and listen to that over and over again and
I hope you build
research
something.
those things you
I hope you
mentioned.
build something and you tweet it at me. That's what I hope.
Absolutely. When I get to that phase. Thanks a lot.
Drift, let's go ahead, man.
Hey, can you hear me?
You're good. You're good. Go ahead, man.
All right. Hey, I got two things going on. I did reach out to Zachy on email. I got long story short is I got two things cooking. One is I'm kind of consulting with a project that already exists that we want to do some special things on Cosmos, and I'm really trying to plug into the ecosystem. I'm not full time doing this, but
I just followed you back, so just hit me up in DMs.
yeah. Anyway, so that's one thing, and the second thing was kind of an extension of what you just talked about, and it's also my personal experience. Is that no package I have ever tried has actually done the accounting for crypto correctly. Every one of them stinks.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a disaster, especially when it comes to DeFi. So I keep thinking, God, somebody's got to figure this out, especially with DeFi, because
Yeah.
it'll never hit mainstream unless grandpa or whoever, the average guy, can say, I can do my tax return and it's reliable. It's an unbelievable mess. So, I'm thinking about that and like, how do we create something that could do that?
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. I'll let you go.
I mean, I see a lot of teams that are doing compelling stuff on I mean, where I think something like Ethereum is like significantly ahead of something like Cosmos is stuff like the ERC 4626, like yield bearing token standard, which is something that like we support for Psalm, right? And so there are teams. We've mostly talked to teams on the institutional side, but there are also teams on the retail side, like Superform, that are building like sort of like single plane, like the term of art is like a single plane of glass, like a single reporting interface that you can have multiple yield bearing instruments. It all gets accounted for correctly. You can like see everything. You can see your risk. You can have a single risk dashboard, like all of this stuff. I think a lot about the need for getting stuff like that built for Cosmos as well. And in that world, like the EVM world is substantially ahead of anything else.
Yeah, you would think with IBC and how cool Kepler is that just walking the IBC chain would make. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it would be
Oh, it's
doable.
definitely doable, but it's the challenge with application specific blockchains is that everybody does everything in like their own unique special way. Um, like we don't have any way of standardized reporting for like yields or APYs or any of this stuff, right? So it's just like 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 where are your returns coming from on osmosis, and and as Cosmos DeFi just gets more and more complex, like where are your returns coming from?
Do you think I could get you to carry that flag? Meaning, I think we need to come up with a standard within Cosmos so we can actually get this adopted, because it's never going to get anywhere unless we do
Yeah, I
that.
mean that's like I think it's definitely a thing that like I've been thinking about more recently. You know, not, but yeah, no. You make a good point. I've been thinking about it, but definitely.
I mean, just think about it. If you're somebody who wants to go decentralized, or be your own sovereign, and let's say you love like Injective, or DYDX is coming, and Kujira, and all these cool things, and hopefully there's going to be another one. Wink, wink.
Yep.
So all of these people, you get on board, and you learn Kepler and all this stuff, and you go, oh, I want to get bigger. I want to go in and go in. The more you get into it, to realize the more it's a mess to figure out what you actually did. You make money? Did you lose money? I don't know. I'm just like a mess. So you get my point.
Yep.
All right, guys, if anyone else wants to come up and give any statements to our special guest of today, Zaki, feel free to do so. Any statements and questions, we'll be taking them up for the next couple of minutes. If you guys are enjoying this conversation by myself and Zaki, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin and turn on the notifications for whenever I do these spaces. I'll be hosting a lot more builders in the space, especially within the Cosmos and more so the interchain ecosystem. So feel free to do so. I do see we have a project building on Cosmos called Novus, and I know they're working with Neutron, and we've hosted those boys before. Really like what they're building, and yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes if anyone else wants to come up. So yeah, so Zaki, brother, any conferences that you're excited to attend in over the next couple of months?
I'm
I'll
gonna be at
probably
I'll be at ETH Denver. I'll be at Interop and like the Denver surrounding events. So see people there.
for sure, man, for sure. I won't be going to Denver, unfortunately, but I will be going to Consensus and a few events around that time. So looking forward to interacting in person with the overall Web3 ecosystem. So yeah, man, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for coming on board and talking some shop with us and introducing yourself to our audience, man. Looking forward
Thank
to
you
the
for
future.
inviting me,
No
and
problem,
thank
man.
you for
No
being part of
problem.
the community of all the stuff that I like to build on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Cosmos is day one for me, man. I predominantly like my quote unquote like DeFi hub that I stayed upon was Terra, and also of course like Osmosis and all of those things. I remember being so excited, dude. Like right when Osmosis launched in June, and like seeing all those interfaces and all that stuff, it was like wow, dude. Like my thesis is actually coming to fruition. Where Cosmos is going to be like the dominant hub for the things that I enjoy, but of course I also enjoy GameFi and things like that. But it was really cool seeing DeFi actually becoming like accessible and having a nice interface and all that stuff. So yeah, man, I'm excited for the years to come. We actually have one more person coming up, coin landing page, so I'll bring them up. Go ahead, coin landing page.
Hi there. Zaki, I had a question for you. So, for projects building on the ecosystem that are not like a chain or a protocol, where would they go to contact you personally for feedback or to see for like collaborations? Where would they go to get to reach out to you or to similar high profile developers?
Tweeting at me continues to work well. I'm usually and like I'll usually tweet at me, send me a follow. People definitely cold email me, but it's hit or miss. If I see it, um, and I'm active in the community channels of like most of the projects. Definitely not as active in the Cosmos, like the Atom community channels. I think most of the core devs have pretty much been chased out of those channels long ago by the community. Um, but I don't think I'm too difficult to access.
Right. Would you mind sending me a DM so I can talk to you via Twitter DMs?
Yep, I just followed you.
All right, nice, thanks.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Thank you so much, Saki. Looking forward to having you on over the next couple of months. Probably, I'll try to have you back on maybe like in May or in June, and we'll see like all the exciting stuff that's coming to Cosmos. I honestly, I'm really excited as well about things like Saga. I love their team. I hosted Rebecca and the other guys as well a couple of days ago, and Rebecca was like last month. Absolutely enthusiastic about all the stuff that they're building with GameFi. So I definitely share your enthusiasm with that, and yeah, man, I look forward to hosting other builders as well, like Nick from Celestia, hopefully, and just really connecting with you guys and just showing my support and appreciation for the magic that you've done for the ecosystem.
Thank you.
With that being said, thank you to our audience for coming to today's episode. You can find a replay of this space with Zaki in a couple of minutes after the space has ended. We'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna have one of the guys from GG Quest again, and then on Sunday we're gonna be hosting White Whale, which is another product that's building on top of Cosmos. So look forward to our weekend spaces, but it's probably gonna be the last weekend spaces for a while. Not really feeling so well. So, anyways, outside of that, thank you all so much. Take care and God bless you. Goodbye.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm going to get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.